don't want to use. Check 1, 2. Can you hear me now, Rachel? I know the audio is not going to be great and it's probably not in sync. Let me get my keyboard. Ah, okay, you hear that. Yeah, it's not going to be ideal audio. Okay, I should have done some more testing before I dove in today. Okay, so it's probably not in sync with my webcam. On the job testing. That's how it is sometimes. Staff to get this angle. Now, I made the mistake last time when I did one of these of making it so involved that it wasn't a warm-up drawing at all. It took up the whole stream, and I do not have time for that, so I'm going to try to make this really fast. See how quick I can do this. This will be good practice for some comics projects I got coming up this year, where I am not going to have a ton of time to work on it, and I really need to work on optimizing my speed. No second guessing. Just use your intuition. Like, for instance, all I knew when I started this drawing was going to be Grandpa and Bear and Pickles and Taft walking over a rocky terrain where something's in the foreground that they don't see. That's all I knew. So I'm just intuiting everything right now. See, and I started putting Pickles' hand on this handlebar on Taft, but then I realized, wait a minute, she got this funny staff. This very Masters of the Universe style staff that I first drew it with, and I liked it. So Taft has sort of harness belts holding on his little handlebar. He's got all of their gear on the back. Now, how loose can I get away with in this? I usually pencil pretty darn tight, but you know what? I think I'm going to really go on the limb today. I'm going to try to ink this with pencils that loose. Oh my gosh. This feels so incredibly dangerous. Some people ride motorcycles. Some people snowboard. I pencil loosely. What am I working with today? I should show my tools. There's my tools I'm using today as I take a quick drink of coffee. So, you got your mechanical pencil with, what is it? What is this lead? Uni, Nanodia, blue lead. A couple of brush pens. A couple of felt tip pens. Why is this out? Palladino Blackwing there. I'm not using that. And then if I get through the inks fast enough, I'm going to try to throw some watercolor on this. Oh my gosh. I used to really, really dislike these pens. Actually, I find the Nano Dio, this particular colored blue, it's not non-photo blue, it's a dark blue. I find it erases really, really clean. But they're not, it was a student who turned me on to it. I was using Pentel for the longest time, I mean like decades. And then one of my students came to class and they got this. I don't even know where they got this brand, but they were like, hey, you should try this, I really like it. And my goodness, if that kid was not super right. And I'm working on watercolor paper right now, and it comes right the heck off. I just want the record to show that I am super terrified right now. Terrified, that's a strong word. I don't know if you noticed this about me, I am prone to hyperbole. But I am nervous as I do this. Maybe this would also be good practice for me for when I get to like the inks that I have to do today for work. I'll feel like a little less stressed out about it because I'm exercising my demons through this. Let's do these Foreground Mountains. This will really get my drawing hand into shape. What was I doing here? See, this is why I like the pencil tight. Let's put some little bits of petals and debris in the mid-ground here. So here's what I'm going to do for this little ghosty thing. We'll break out my color pens. Big fan of these two. And I have to thank Tori Woolcott for introducing me to these. Go ahead and ink this in this orange. Color holds. thank you. I'll say it's the pen. Yeah, those oh, what brand is it? This is 0.5 millimeter, and this is the Uni Style Fit. That's what it's called. So you can see it there. And it's 5 colors. I have 2 of them because I use 7 colors right now. I've talked about this before. Goes with my emergent task planner, but I also use them occasionally for drawing things like this, where I want to use a quick color hold on something. Alright. Where's the rest of Taft's body go? Where is the rest of Taft's body? It goes like here. There. This is where we do that thing we call drawing through. Draw through the objects in the foreground so that we know where all the parts go. How long have I been doing this? Like 10 minutes? 15 minutes? It's not going to be much of a warm-up if it takes much longer, Tracy. I know, I'm on it. I don't know what I was doing with Pickle's body up here. Alright, what's going on up here? Okay, Pickles has that belt. And we're kneeling down. So you hoard your art supplies too, eh, Rachel? Ann and I actually have like a little chest of drawers, are just like stuffed full of art supplies. One thing you'll never get me to say no to is going to look at art supplies and probably getting more than I need. Belt is on the side of her belt and pants. What do I have here? That's a sleepy bag and gear. And there's the rest of Taft's shell. Let's see if I got a dryer brush here. We'll go real quick. And I do mean quick, because I gotta wrap this up and get to my thing I'm doing today. Quick erase. Actually, my color pens one more time. I'm gonna put in the wisps. Let's see who's here. Who's where? Let's see. I know orange is on the bottom of the staff. I don't even remember my own characters. I think blue and green were up top, and violet was right here. I think that's right. Alright, now, quick erase. You see this blue just like totally just vanishes. I'm really impressed with how well it erases. And I'm not pressing hard. Alright, get my watercolors out real fast. And a little travel watercolor kit. My brown always pops out. Let's see if I can get everything in the shot. And now all my pens can go away. Now we're just working with these two. And let's get the background done real fast. What color do we use for that? There we go. I think a thing that's emerging for me right now is to do more things I'm afraid of. Like, for instance, this. Doing loose pencils, jumping right to inks, and trying to watercolor it really fast while people are watching. It seems like a very 21st century thing to do, right? A very internet-y thing is let's fail in public. Isn't that an expression that some of those tech people use? Oh, I'm out of water? No. There we go. This is nice and soaked. I'm going to try to do a very quick and dirty filmation-y kind of sky. My eraser shaving's got in there. Get out of there. Get out of there. Good. Nice saturated. Get some green in there. One of the things I find like super emblematic, and I always think of when I think of He-Man, is those green and yellow skies. I love them. Okay, let's do foreground rocks. Monitor as fast as you can. Can you hear the anxiety in my voice? Maybe a little red. Maybe too blue. Thank you, Rachel, for cheering me on. I appreciate the vote of confidence. It's funny, you know, when I was a kid, I remember thinking, like, people yelling, you know, you can do it, we believe in you, wasn't super helpful. I remember thinking that, like, I have a very specific memory of when I was on the track team, and I started out the race at the meet, and I was actually in first place, and that's like the first time it's ever happened to me, like, oh my gosh, I'm doing something physically well. And the last leg, I totally just ran out of juice. My body just said, nope, you're done. And I remember it was this really weird sort of disconnect where I'm like, no, I've seen movies. If I just, like, wish hard enough and reach for the man upstairs and all that stuff, I'm going to, like, come through okay. And my body was like, no, I'm done. And my teammates all actually, like, came up to the sideline and started cheering me on. And I remember, like, well, this isn't getting me anywhere. I mean, you can wish me all the success in the world. My body said no. But I think about it now, my relationship with that has changed in that it's like, you know what? I never know for sure how well I'm doing anything. I think I'm doing okay. And having an outside voice say, this is good, you're doing well, keep going, actually, it's a wayfinding. It's a way for me to know that, okay, maybe I can't see it. And maybe it's not important that I can see it. Maybe it's just important that I just keep trying at it. And trust the signals I'm getting from the world. You're going to get more blue in you, though, buddy. Going. Let's put a little bit of yellow. Let it blend together a little bit. Oh, I should have done this when it was still wet. It dried too fast. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's the same principle as, like, nobody writes a Yelp review when they're satisfied, right? I think it's part of what's at work there too. But I think we all recognize the fact that most of us are just like sort of groping in the darkness. I don't know. Are they doing okay? I don't know. Do you know? Maybe it's not that important that we know, but just that we stay in there and keep going. I guess that's what they call faith, right? I remember that Miracle on 34th Street. Hey Jonathan, happy Monday to you. Yeah, I was scared beyond all belief when I started. I'm not saying you're scared, Jonathan, by the way. I'm just saying that when I was dragged kicking and screaming into watercoloring. It was something that my wife Anne tried to get me to do for years, and I was like, "Oh, I'm a cartoonist. I'm not a painter." Arguing for my limitations and all that, and then I did it, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so much fun." And like I think I had to wait to do it because I think part of the fun of it for me is relinquishing control. And I remember like people like Ben Hackey would be telling me about like that's part of the fun. I remember having a conversation with him at A2CAF when he had an exhibition going on at the Ann Arbor District Library, and I said something about that. And he said like that's part of the fun is like letting go and letting the medium work with you. And I remember thinking that's terrifying. What point is there to make art if not to have control? So, actually, give us that shot. Come on. Alright, let's do our creatures now. I really do need to wrap this up. I was trying to make this like a little slithering ghosty type of dealy. Given that the Baron's occupation is tracking down cursed things. Oh, well, that's registering on the camera. Let's see. There's one of those little bits of accent there I can work with. It's fine. Got a little bit of green on the Baron. Okay, do I have any tapped underside? There we go. How long have I been going? About 30 minutes. Yeah, 30 minutes. Dadgummit. I really need to work on that. These warm-up drawings are not warm-up drawings at all. It's a trap. The warm-up drawing is inside the house. Let's get some water in here before I put the blue in. There we go. Let's do the Barrens brown. So I have been toying around with this character. I've said this in other streams for like 12 years now. Going on 13. First time I ever drew him was on the cover of a comic book that I drew in 2002 called PPV, Pay-Per-View. And back then, the idea was he was going to be called Dr. Bear. And he was going to be like some kind of like Indiana Jones world traveler kind of character. And I don't know, somewhere along the line, it changed to Baron von Bear. I couldn't pinpoint where that is. I couldn't tell you. But I remember there was like this silly things in my sketchbook where it would be like paging Dr. Bear, action and adventure, cuteness. More darker brown for the cats' harnesses. Let's get this shell real quick. Oops. I probably should be using more red in my shadows given the color of the sky. So then I go to the red. I forget what that art technique is called where you like put the complement of the light source in the shadow. Oh, thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, those Masters of the Universe redesigns were so much fun to do, and I've spent so much time looking at them now. I can only see what I would do differently now, because I use them all the time in my comics classes as an example of some of a way for my students to investigate character design by like looking at somebody else's established design, right? And I use the Netflix She-Ra show as an example of like how this is a real job. It's not just an academic thing. This is something that you might be called upon to do. And so I have the students pick 3 Masters of the Universe characters. We watch an episode of the show, and then I have them redesign 3 of the characters, and they have to tell me why they chose this and not that. And so I always pull up my designs and say, look, I don't ask you to do something I don't do myself. So I've spent, like I said, I've spent a lot of time thinking about those designs. And I'd kind of like to do it again from a new perspective, with like what I've learned about character design since then. Is anybody doing hourlies today? Hourly comic day? That's another thing where I feel like it's calling to me because it's something I'm so nervous about doing. And I actually recorded a microcast about this, but I didn't post it. I just have like such an issue with drawing myself, and I'm not sure why that is. I have no problem with you seeing me, right? But like the idea of drawing myself fills me with such conflicting feelings. And so I feel like, okay, that's a signal. That's something you need to like investigate, and you need to try doing it just to like do it. Okay, let's put a little bit of yellow around here for highlighting purposes. Just put a little rim light around. And I'm going to call this one done. Let's not fuss over it too much, right? It's a warm-up drawing. I don't want to be one of those people who says, look at this warm-up sketch I did. And it's like this magnificent drawing. Oh, little warm-up sketch I did. I'm guilty of that. I'm super busted on that, by the way. I have done exactly that in the past. I think in my case, it was me saying, please don't judge this too harshly. It's a warm-up drawing. Alright. I think it's done. There, I did a warm-up drawing. That only took like 3/4 of the stream. So let's close up all this stuff and break up my inking tools again, and I'm going to start trying to hopefully see if I can finish inking a page in 20 minutes. Adjust my... Alright. So, what are you inking, Jersey? I am still working on this Captain Seriously stuff. Thank you, Jonathan. I feel like my hands are warmed up now, so now I can do this. There we go. Why start here instead of here? Because I knew that I could do these lines fairly quickly. I remember hearing a, was it Fabian Nasienza? I think I quoted this very recently. Once said about comics pages that you get like one panel to show off, and the rest need to be journeyman panels. Just get the story done. Alright. Number 7. I'm going to figure out another way to rig up a camera to do overhead cam stuff, because those little legs of this tripod totally get in the way of my paper when I'm flipping it around. So how long does it take to finish a comic page now? That is a good question. It depends on the page, of course, right? There's a handy answer for you, Jonathan. These Captain Seriously pages are taking me, and mind you, I'm keeping these very simple because this is a first grade book, and I'm freehanding all the backgrounds. So, I want to say about like 3 to 4 hours a page. Which is pretty speedy. Given that, I want to say, back when I was doing books like The Front, gosh, those pages were like 15, 20 to 25 hours. There were some pages that I know took 25 hours to do. And I remember wearing that kind of like a badge of courage. Oh my gosh, it takes so long to make these. And it does. The Roboforce comic pages take me a long time. Those are like 15-hour pages. But I'm drawing a lot of robots, and I'm trying to like make them match the toys. And the script calls for a lot of details. What was it, last year? Or the year before? I didn't do Inktober last year. It was the year before, so it was 2019. For Inktober, I did a pitch for a Baron von Bear book. And the sample pages that I think I did 5 sample pages, and I think I got them down to pencils, inks, all the way to color and lettering was about 3 hours. And that was like a breakthrough for me. And part of it was making sure to choose very simple, well, going back to the idea of like only having one panel to show off. It's like really like focus on designing panels that aren't about showing off the art as much. But another part of it was just like workflow. Like I penciled it in Clip Studio, printed it out in Bristol. Well, actually, I printed it on watercolor paper, and inked it in brush pen. And then I colored it in Clip, but I used Ray Frendon's watercolor brushes. And I used that simple method that I was using the other day when I was coloring Seriously pages, that I just flatted it. Throw on a couple of not adjustment layers, layers with different layer modes, multiply, lighten, and just watercolor down those layers over top. And that's how I was able to pull it off with such speed. Jonathan, I think that is well put. I think part of it too, if I may speak for you, Jonathan, but I think we've both been doing this around the same amount of time. I feel like we're fairly close in age. And you mentioned that might have something to do with getting older. I think it has to do with skill acquisition too, and mastery. I don't think I could have pulled off a 3-hour page when I was first starting out. My first couple years in, and I was really building my skills. I think if I would have tried for a looser style, it wouldn't have worked. Because I think part of what makes my loose stuff work is that I actually understand more intuitively basic construction. When you look at your curvy stuff that you're doing, it's not curvy stuff, but it's sort of playing with the curvy design language, you can tell that you understand how to draw a body. So when you start stretching it out and everything and doing all that forced perspective, it totally works. But if I were to try doing what you're doing there when I was only a couple years in, and I really didn't have a full comprehensive understanding of anatomy, it probably would have looked a little bit more bonkers. It would have looked less skilled, right? So I think that's part of it too. I think about some of those Alex Toth comics that I've read from his later years, where it's that man could draw a squiggle and it's an ear, and you look at it objectively on its own, it's that's just a squiggle. But then when you see it in the context of the lens, oh my gosh, he just did this one little bloop with a brush and he's got an ear. I think it's partially that too. And I think it's fair to also to consider that it's probably something about age, in that while I'm not necessarily thinking about death every day and oh my gosh, I'm almost at the end, I am starting to think about okay, well, how much time do I have left and how many projects can I do given how long these things take? Can I speed it up a little bit? Can I get more out of less? So that I have more to do before the end. Alright, how much time we got left? See, there's me looking at the clock. It's 10 minutes to go. What am I going to do? I'll do this big shot of the lady cat here. Or should I do a little shot of Captain Seriously? Maybe I'll do a little one of Captain Seriously. That's true, Rachel, yeah. Yeah, the longer you do this, the more you know which lines to leave out. And that's just something that I think, at least from my perspective, only came from experience. But, don't quote me on that. I didn't go to art school. And I'm not trying to hand wave or disclaim unnecessarily, but I do recognize that there are bits of language and formal thinking that I probably don't have immediate access to, given the fact that I didn't go through that training. Oh, are you quoting me? Oh, that's good. I'm don't quote me on that. Well, that was a quote from you. That is one of the marvelous things about doing this talking in public thing and teaching, is when somebody comes back and says something that I think sounds pretty cool, and I'm like, oh yeah, you told me that. Not so fun when they come back and tell me something that I said and I don't agree with it anymore. Well, past Jersey was a dummy. I don't say that. Oh, see, Mad Cat says, I had developed a style that would help me complete pages faster. I have a business and a family and very limited time to draw, and I don't want to take years to complete one issue. Yeah, I am with you. This stuff takes entirely too long to do. So if you can get more speed without losing quality, I'd say that's a win. Well, Rachel, I will happily accept that attribution. Can I just say I'm so grateful that y'all show up when I do these things so that we can have these little philosophical wonderings about art. This is exactly the kind of stuff I like to think about. Oh my goodness, yeah. Having 8 to 10 hours a day to draw. That does sound like heaven. I haven't had that in a long time. Right now I am having a strict budget of no more than 11 hours a week to draw. And it's kind of difficult. Getting lost in it is like half of the pleasure. And I don't know how much of that was out of necessity, like learning to love that part because you spend so much time in it. But I feel like it's possibly even more pleasurable than the actual finishing of the thing. Alright, now to do I know I talked about this in the live stream where I was penciling this one, but I was really struggling with how to show this in a way that was very clear. She's shaking her head. Because I would normally do the multiple faces zigzagging back and forth, but I thought, that might make the image too messy for a first grade book. Too, I don't want to say complex, but too busy. I think I'm going to have to wrap it up with this panel. I don't think I'm going to be able to finish that last panel in 3 minutes. So as I close this one out, once again, thank you all for hanging out with me. I'm going to do this again on Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. The links to my stuff is right above my head right now. And, what am I supposed to say? Please consider liking this video. I guess that's the thing that helps more people find it. I'm still trying to figure out YouTube's and Twitch's. And then also, I'm doing Lean Into Art this week with my buddy Rob Stenzinger. Do another creative chat episode, and oh, thank you, Daisha. It makes me very happy to hear that. Especially from another fantastically skilled cartoonist. And thank you, Mad Cat Art. And like I said, I'll be back Thursday doing this again. So if you feel like talking art philosophy while watching somebody ink some comics, I will be here. So thanks once again. See y'all next time. Jersey Dros, jdros.com, Jersey Dros.